Greetings, my name is Trayambak and today I'll be talking about my hobby project, the Ferus web engine. So without further ado, let us begin. I'll now be talking about the seat of Ferus. I began work on Ferus in the summer of 2023, just for fun. It was quite naive of me to think that this would be a linear cookie cutter task, and that's why we're here now. Over the course of the year, I have written 10.8 thousand lines of code for Ferus, and we're slowly getting to a place where things have started to work. Here's the Nim website being rendered in Ferus. I've also made quite a few packages for the entire Nim ecosystem as a whole, and I've learned quite a few neat tricks along the way, so I'm quite thankful for that one. Here's a few websites that I'll now showcase being rendered in Ferus. First off, here's the KDE project's website. You can see it's not quite there yet, but that's mostly because of that. But that's mostly due to our lack of CSS support. You can see that you can read some of the content. Some of the content is overflowing past the viewport. We'll get to fixing that eventually. There's the free desktop project's website in Ferus. It's quite a simple one, so it's mostly rendering properly as intended. Here's Drew DeWalt's blog post on web engines in Ferus. You can see that it's mostly rendering properly as well, but that's because it's not quite that complex either. Here's Source Hut. It's rendering mostly properly as well. You can read what's on the page. However, as fun as this is, I have to admit that this is a bit training to do on my own. That's exactly why I've decided to change my course of actions a little bit. Change of plans. What now? I've been working away at Bali and Mirage. The first one is a JavaScript engine built on top of the second, which is a bytecode interpreter. I'm also constantly improving Ferus GX and Stylus. Ferus GX is our graphics pipeline, while Stylus is our CSS3 parser. Are we compliant yet? Well, not quite. As of the time of writing this slide, that is 4th of October, we're passing 2.4% of all the tests in the Test 262 suite in the master branch. That's approximately 1100 tests. It might not seem like a lot, because it isn't, but it's about as much as I can do alone. How does it work? Bali works like a typical JavaScript engine, like say V8 or Serenity's libjs. It takes in a JavaScript source file, tokenizes it to create a stream of tokens, and passes said stream into an abstract syntax tree of statements. This AST is then taken in by the runtime, which analyzes it to generate correct bytecode that targets the Mirage interpreter. Here's a small representation of the code. It's not quite good looking, and that's intended. It's not meant for humans to read. It's an intermediary representation. What can Bali do right now? Bali currently supports the Web Console API, Web Math API, constructors like the URL constructor, and some built-ins like parsint. We're slowly chipping away at the rest of these spec problems that we're still in compliance with. For example, I recently fixed up some bugs with the Web Math API where it was not accepting strings. Now it properly just uses the two-number coercion function, and now it works as intended. The URL parsing API is based off of Sanchar, our HTTP client's URL parser. I like to thank Konstantin Molchanov, I'm extremely sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, for working on making the parser more compliant by adding Punycode support. I also ended up binding a good part of SimDUTF to Nim just to add SimD accelerated base64 processing to Bali, and the performance improvements are quite nice. Now I'll be talking about Ferus GX, our graphics pipeline. Ferus GX is quite a simple library. It's just about 800 lines of code. Actually, it's around 750 lines of code. So it's quite a simple library. It's quite simple to grasp as well. There's a scene. The scene just contains an entire tree of nodes that derive from drawable. And in order to manipulate this scene tree, you can use the display list object. This pipeline is mostly transactional, meaning that we can just keep on sending display lists over the IPC layer from the master process to the renderer, and it works as intended. We actually have a small little mechanism that handles this for us in Ferus. Next up, I'll be talking about parsing CSS3. Here's where Stylus kicks in. Stylus is a CSS3 compliant parser written in Nim. It's mostly based off of CSS parser that server uses. Its API still has a lot of kinks and bumps that I have to smooth out. I'll get to that once it's fully integrated into the Ferus source tree. And that's about it. Thank you for listening to my talk. I'm quite passionate about this, and it really feels nice when people hear me talk about it. This is a bit ambitious, but I hope that one day Ferus can actually become a viable alternative, a lighter one, to something like Chrome or Firefox. I'm currently a student, so I cannot devote a lot of time to Ferus. That's quite unfortunate. However, I hope to be able to work as much as possible on Ferus once my academic bogus is done. Again, as I just stated, I'm a student, so I don't really need any monetary support. But there's something that you all can do in order to help me immensely. You can grab a copy of Ferus from the Git repositories that we have, and then you can try compiling it and then running it on certain websites that you can see. Then you can also try out Bali, our JavaScript engine. You can grab the Git source and then try compiling it and then running it against JavaScript samples. And that's about it. Now you can ask your questions here, and I'll try my best to answer them.